The pediatric ward at St. Mary's Hospital buzzed with quiet activity as Sarah adjusted her stethoscope and checked on her patients for the evening shift. At 28, she had been working as a pediatric nurse for 5 years, finding deep satisfaction in caring for children during their most vulnerable moments. Her simple scrubs and comfortable shoes reflected her practical approach to a demanding job that required both medical expertise and emotional resilience. In room 304, 4-year-old Emma was recovering from surgery to repair a congenital heart defect. The little girl had been Sarah's patient for 3 weeks now, and they had developed the special bond that sometimes forms between nurses and their young charges. Emma's blonde hair was pulled back in a small ponytail, and she clutched a white stuffed bunny that had become her constant companion. "Miss Sarah, will you read me another story?" Emma asked, her voice still weak but her eyes bright with curiosity. "Of course, sweetheart. Which book would you like today?" As Sarah settled into the chair beside Emma's bed, she noticed a man standing in the doorway. Tall and well-dressed in a light blue shirt and dark pants, he watched the interaction with an expression that mixed gratitude and concern. This was Daniel Harrison, Emma's father, who had barely left the hospital since his daughter's admission. Sarah had learned that Daniel was a single father who ran a successful technology company, but his professional achievement seemed irrelevant in the face of his daughter's medical needs. She had observed his dedication over the past weeks, how he slept in the uncomfortable hospital chair, read endless stories, and maintained cheerful conversations with Emma, despite his obvious exhaustion and worry. "Mr. Harrison," Sarah said quietly, as she finished reading to Emma, who had drifted off to sleep. "How are you holding up?" Daniel stepped into the room, his voice barely above a whisper. "Better today. Dr. Peterson says Emma's recovery is ahead of schedule. She's a remarkable little girl. And she's lucky to have such a devoted father. I feel like I should be doing more. You and the other nurses provide such incredible care, and I'm just here." Sarah understood the helplessness that parents felt in hospital settings. "Mr. Harrison, your presence means everything to Emma. Children heal better when they feel loved and safe." Over the following days, Sarah and Daniel developed the comfortable communication that often emerges between medical staff and families during extended hospitalizations. He appreciated her patience in explaining procedures and her gentle way of preparing Emma for various treatments. Sarah admired his unwavering commitment to his daughter and his efforts to maintain normalcy in an abnormal situation. One evening, as Emma's discharge approached, Daniel lingered after visiting hours with something clearly on his mind. "Sarah, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. The hospital is having a fundraising gala next month. I'm expected to attend because my company is a major donor, but I haven't been to a social event since Emma's mother died 3 years ago." Sarah listened, understanding that he was sharing something significant about his personal life. "I was wondering, would you consider accompanying me? Not as a professional obligation, but as someone who understands what Emma and I have been through." Sarah felt surprised by the invitation. "Daniel, that's very kind, but I'm not sure it would be appropriate. You're Emma's father and I'm her nurse. Emma will be discharged by then, and honestly, the thought of attending alone feels overwhelming. You're the only person I trust to understand if I need to leave early or if I get emotional talking about Emma's recovery." Sarah appreciated his honesty about his emotional needs, but another concern weighed on her mind. "I should mention I don't exactly have the wardrobe for galas. Nurses don't typically need formal evening wear." Daniel's expression grew thoughtful. "Would you allow me to help with that? Not as charity, but because I genuinely want you there and I know the financial realities of healthcare workers' salaries. I couldn't let you buy me a dress. That would feel too much like—" She hesitated. "Like what?" "Like you're paying for a companion rather than asking someone you care about to accompany you to an important event." Daniel was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "Sarah, over these past weeks, you've become more than Emma's nurse. You've become someone I look forward to seeing, someone whose perspective I value, and someone who makes me feel less alone in this experience." Sarah realized that her feelings toward Daniel had evolved beyond professional concern into genuine personal affection. "I care about you and Emma, too. But the dress situation is a real obstacle. What if I told you that my company sponsors several nurses to attend the gala each year, and it includes appropriate attire? You wouldn't be the only healthcare worker there, and your presence would actually help represent the nursing staff. Sarah considered this approach, which felt more comfortable than accepting personal gifts. In that case, I'd be honored to accompany you. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in her apartment looking at the elegant navy blue dress that had been delivered with a note. Thank you for caring for Emma and for agreeing to support our fundraising efforts. Daniel. At the gala, held in the ballroom of the city's finest hotel, Sarah felt initially overwhelmed by the formal atmosphere and elegant crowd. But Daniel's presence beside her provided comfort, and his genuine pride in introducing her as the nurse who helped save Emma's life made her feel valued rather than out of place. Sarah, Daniel said as they found their seats, I need to tell you something. When I invited you tonight, it wasn't really about needing support at a social event. What was it about? It was about wanting to spend time with you outside the hospital, in a setting where we could get to know each other as people, rather than as patient's father and medical caregiver. Sarah felt her heart skip. Daniel, are you saying this is actually a date? I'm saying I've developed feelings for the compassionate, intelligent woman who sang lullabies to my daughter and held my hand when I was scared she might not recover. Sarah looked around the ballroom filled with influential people and elaborate decorations, then back at Daniel. This is quite an elaborate first date. Emma suggested it, actually. She said you deserve to wear a pretty dress and dance with her daddy. Emma knew you were going to ask me. She's been planning this for weeks. She told me that you make me smile again, and that people who make other people smile should go to fancy parties together. As the evening progressed, Sarah discovered that Daniel was not only successful in business, but also thoughtful, funny, and genuinely interested in her perspective on everything from healthcare policy to children's literature. When they danced, he was careful and respectful, clearly more nervous about the personal implications than any business negotiations. Sarah, Daniel said as the evening wound down, would you be interested in a second date? Something more casual, perhaps involving Emma and pizza? I'd love that. But I should warn you, dating someone who works in healthcare means irregular schedules, occasional emotional exhaustion, and stories that might spoil dinner conversation. Dating a single father means bedtime stories at 8 o'clock, cartoon movie marathons, and a very opinionated 4-year-old who will definitely want input on all relationship decisions. Sarah laughed, understanding that they were both acknowledging the complex realities of their lives. Emma does have excellent judgment about people. 6 months later, Sarah sat in Daniel's living room reading bedtime stories to Emma, who was fully recovered and back to her energetic, curious self. Their relationship had grown naturally from that first formal date into something deeper, a partnership built on shared values about family, service, and the importance of caring for others. Sarah, Emma said as she settled under her covers, are you going to marry my daddy? Sarah looked toward the doorway where Daniel stood listening, his expression hopeful but patient. Well, Emma, that depends on whether your daddy asks me properly. I already told him he should ask you soon because you make our family complete. Daniel entered the room and sat on the edge of Emma's bed. Emma's right, you know. You do make our family complete. Sarah understood that what had begun as a professional relationship caring for a sick child had evolved into something beautiful and lasting. The nurse who had worried about having a dress for a gala had found something far more valuable. A family that appreciated both her professional dedication and her personal warmth. Man who had been struggling to navigate single parenthood and social obligations had discovered a partner who understood both the demands of meaningful work and the joy of loving a child. Unconditionally, if this story of finding love through service and authentic connection touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales that remind us how the most meaningful relationships often grow from our commitment to caring for others. Your support helps us continue sharing stories about the power of seeing beyond professional roles to recognize the whole person underneath.